but it allows this kind of tolerance. And when we look at the history of Christianity in the Muslim world, Christians have been living for over 1,000 years with their institutions, with their religion and rituals in Muslim lands run by Sharia. But look at 200 years of secularism. Christianity is dying out. Christianity is on the way out. Churches are closing. There's mass apostasy. And this is the value of secularism. I mean, Christians will be surprised. I'm surprised to hear you say that, which you just did 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, that actually there is no ideal Christian nation. Really? Are Christians supposed to just sit back and allow these tyrants and these satanic forces to just come and destroy the churches, to destroy belief in God? Are Christians supposed to just sit back and allow blasphemy, blasphemers, all under the banner of free speech and tolerance and liberalism to, create this, speaking of urine, piss Christ, right? Where they take an image of Jesus Christ and they put it in a vat of urine and they call this art. Or they go and start talking about the Blessed Virgin Mary and they call her a prostitute or a whore. And we're supposed to just sit back and say, oh, okay, there's no problem with this. Guess what? Islam has a clear solution for people who blaspheme against Jesus Christ, who blaspheme against the Virgin Mary. I'm very shocked to hear David Wood say that, yeah, we don't have any guidance when it comes to these kinds of issues because, whatever. So Muslims, we have a solution. We're not going to let people do this piss Christ or insult the Virgin Mary. We don't tolerate that. We're not about that. And, I really hope that Christians can see the wisdom of the Sharia and Islamic law, at least through this lens.
Say that, Christians, we allow people to blaspheme. That's true. Jesus allowed people to blaspheme against him, right? Jesus did. People were saying all sorts of things about Jesus. Jesus said he could call on plenty of angels to wipe them out, but he didn't. And so that's really the strange thing here that I don't think you're getting. You think we're being inconsistent for pointing out that Muhammad did all these things, and there's no reason to think that he's speaking from God, and so we're hypocritical for pointing out all this violence. The commands that Jesus gave us to love everyone, even our enemies, we take these seriously. These are the commands that are directed towards us. So when Muhammad comes along and says that he's in the same line with Jesus and he turns Jesus into a Muslim prophet, that's blasphemy. So if you think that Islam is here to punish blasphemers against Jesus, check the mirror, buddy.
Jesus allowing blasphemy. So you think that Jesus would be okay with people being allowed in his society to insult his mother and call her a prostitute and call him basically, I don't want to use the word. Like, do you think this is something that Jesus would approve of? Well, what's the result of such a society? Because this kind of widespread blasphemy actually leads to atheism. It leads to mass apostasy. It leads to the destruction of religion, because religion is seen as something that is to be spit on, to be laughed at, to be insulted. And that's what we see in the modern secular West. And to say that Jesus is fine with that, it would tolerate that. Well, if you're really saying that, that means that Jesus's message will lead to the extinction of Christianity. And in fact, when you look at the actual Christian fathers and the Roman Catholic Church, they were extremely harsh about stamping out blasphemy. They were extremely harsh about stamping out any kind of heresy. So I guess according to you, they misunderstood Jesus's message because they were forcing mass conversion. They were killing the heretics. They were killing the blasphemers. I guess they, for 1,000 years, or actually 1,700 years, didn't understand the true message of Christianity. It only took John Locke or Thomas Jefferson to come along and say that, actually Christianity is inspiring us to write the Declaration of Independence and to value free speech so that people can go and make piss Christ. I mean, this is a very bizarre interpretation. I mean, ultimately, when we talk about tolerance, What is tolerance? This is something that needs to be defined. So when David talks about tolerance, he's talking about a liberal tolerance. And this is based on the idea that we should allow people to maximize their individual freedom, and any restriction on people's individual freedom using the law or using coercion is intolerant. Okay, so for example, if you don't let people blaspheme against Jesus, if you don't let people commit, all kinds of deviant sexual acts, and you restrict that, then you're being intolerant. So this is the kind of liberal tolerance that Islam doesn't have, obviously. We have all these corporal punishments, the hudud, and so forth, and we have expansionist war, and so forth. So Islam is not tolerant according to liberalism, and this is basically David's whole argument. But there's another view of tolerance. We can call it traditional tolerance, because traditional tolerance is based on the idea that individuals and human beings, they need to be in families. They have a need to be in loving marital relationships. They have a need to be a part of a community. They need to have faith in God and have a connection with God. And these are all values that are extremely important to human beings. But if you have this kind of tolerance, this liberal tolerance for everything, where you're maximizing human liberty, human freedom and choice, that will actually destroy marriages, that will destroy families, that will destroy communities. And this is exactly why Islam restricts people's individual liberty, despite people saying that this is intolerant or this is contrary to liberalism. Yeah, Islam does contradict liberalism and this idea of liberal tolerance, but we want to tolerate, and this is very clear within the Sharia, we tolerate Christian family law, Jewish family law. The Sharia, yes, it's not doesn't grant equality between Muslims and religious minorities, but it allows this kind of tolerance. And when we look at the history of Christianity in the Muslim world, Christians have been living for over 1,000 years with their institutions, with their religion and rituals in Muslim lands run by Sharia. But look at 200 years of secularism. Christianity is dying out. Christianity is on the way out. Churches are closing. There's mass apostasy. And this is the value of secularism.
ZXX. Thanks so much. Says Daniel is literally advocating for persecuting anyone who doesn't agree with his religion. Your thoughts, Daniel?
No, as I've said before, there's not this command for just indiscriminate killing and expansionist war in Islam. Expansion can be used. It's in the discretion of the emir, the leader of Muslims. So if there is a need to expand, or there's opportunity to expand the rule of Islam, then that can happen. And it doesn't involve just massacring people as described in the Old Testament and affirmed by Orthodox Jewish law and Christian authorities. It involves establishing the Sharia, and people become Ahlul Dhimma, basically the protected people who have to pay, the jizya, have to pay a certain tax, but they're protected and they're under the control of the Sharia. And I already addressed that there's not exactly equal rights because there's an incentive for people to become Muslim. They're not eradicated, but this Islamic society provides incentives so that people can accept Islam and be Muslims. But if people choose not to do that, they can continue to practice Christianity, practice Judaism, according to some interpretations, even Hinduism. That can be practiced under the Islamic rule. And I think that's a better system of tolerance. This is the traditional tolerance that I was explaining before. It's much better than the quote unquote liberal tolerance that atomizes society and creates all of this individualism gone awry. We give in Islam individual rights, but there's a limit. If you maximize individual rights without limit, that causes the destruction of family, that causes the destruction of community and marriage and everything, all the problems that we see with the modern world. But Islam's understanding of tolerance is that, yes, the Ahlul Dhimma, the people of the book, they practice their religious rituals, they maintain their family law, their inheritance law, they maintain their rules of commercial transaction amongst themselves, and Islam protects them. And yes, I conceded that it's not a perfectly equal system between Muslims and non-Muslims because there's the incentive to convert. But that, I would argue that Christians living under that rule of law, Jews living under that rule of law, despite it not being liberally tolerant, would prefer that much more than the destruction of their customs, their traditions, and their entire religions under the secular modern regime. And again, the proof is in the pudding because we see Christians who have maintained their religion for 1400 years under Sharia law, this supposedly terrible, barbaric, intolerant law. They've preserved it for 1400 years, whereas Christians are dying off, basically becoming apostates. Their church is shuddering throughout the Western secular world that is supposedly so much more tolerant. Islam is the only religion, unfortunately, that's standing up against this secular liberal behemoth, this monster. I wish that Christians would wake up and also stand against this, but right now, Islam is the only religion that's standing up for these Abrahamic values. I feel like I've defended the Old Testament more in this debate, the Bible more in this debate than David has. I mean, what does that tell you?